On the evening of December 24, 2002, there was a strange call made to 911.
How can I help you?
Yes, my son-in-law called. He went playing golf this morning at 9:30. My daughter's been missing since this morning. She's 8 months pregnant. She took her dog for a walk in the park. The dog came home with disbelief shock.
And the dog came back without your daughter?
Right.
Okay, what is your address, sister? What is your name?
My name is Ron. I'm her stepdad.
Okay, what's
Her husband, Scott Peterson.
what's your stepdaughter's name?
Laci Peterson.
Laci, Peterson, right?
Peterson.
And she's white, black, Hispanic, Asian.
She's Portuguese and white.
How old is she?
She's 26. She's got short black hair. She's about 5'1".
Hold on, she's 5'1".
Yes. Dark eyes.
Dark hair and eyes.
Yes.
What time did she leave the house and didn't come back?
That we don't know. We just got a call from our son-in-law that he left this morning at 9:30 to play golf. He just got home about a half hour ago. Nowhere around.
Okay, and her husband's name was?
Scott.
Scott Peterson. Do you know what he's wearing?
No, he just called me from the house. I have no idea.
Police immediately began their search for Laci Peterson. However, there were two things strange about the call. Scott Peterson, the husband of Laci Peterson, was not the one to dial 911 despite being the one living with her. The reason given was that Scott went out and started looking for Laci himself. This would make sense, except the year was 2002. Cell phone use was prominent, and Scott himself had and used a cell phone. There was no reason that Scott himself couldn't call while looking for Laci. In fact, it would have made more sense for Scott to call because Scott was the one living with Laci and happened to be the last person to see her. Therefore, he would have more valuable information to tell the 911 operator. The other strange thing is that Scott had been playing golf that morning. This will be important to remember in a moment. By no means are these observations evidence of guilt against Scott Peterson, and at the time, it was reasonable to assume Scott was genuinely preoccupied with actively searching for Laci. However, it's not uncommon for a criminal to distance themselves from a crime they were a part of by avoiding as much confrontation as possible with authorities. In any missing person case, the detectives generally start by investigating the immediate family and spouse, then work outwards from there. This is done because it is statistically likely that the victim and whoever is responsible for their disappearance know each other. After only a few hours of Laci being reported missing, the detectives bring in Scott for questioning. He is told he is here to help with the investigation. However, the police want to establish a timeline of his whereabouts to see if they can rule him out as a suspect.
Thank you. Pretty much got all I'm going to do. Let's just go over what we already talked about so I can make some notes. See if you remember something that maybe you don't know you remember.
There is an immediate change in body language after the detective comes inside the room. When Scott is alone, he's leaning forward with his hands on the table. This is indicative of comfort and confidence. As the detective settles down, Scott readjusts into a leaning backwards position with his hands in his pocket. This could indicate that Scott is feeling threatened by the detective, and his leaning back posture is a way of creating distance between himself and the perceived threat. The hands in the pocket is a way of shielding himself from the situation. In short, Scott's body language here is defensive and uncomfortable. That being said, it's normal for someone to be defensive and uncomfortable in a police interrogation room, whether they are guilty or innocent. Analyzing someone's behavior on its own is meaningless. What's more important in an interrogation setting is to establish what's called a baseline of behavior, whereby we get a read on how someone normally responds to questions when they are being truthful. Then, we can take note of any changes in behavior that occur as a result of asking certain questions. This can tell us when the subject is being deceptive and lead us to the truth.
So, today, just tell me about the morning.
Okay. I don't know what time we got up. Probably Laci got up and went and assumed she had some cereal for breakfast. She eats right when she wakes up, otherwise she gets sick because she's pregnant. I laid around in bed longer. I got up at 8 o'clock probably or so. Showered. we were watching her favorite show, Martha Stewart. Watched a little bit of that.
You didn't watch the whole thing, though?
No.
You remember what part you saw? I mean, I don't know what
Yeah. I'm cooking the old time. Cookies of some sort. They're talking about what to do with meringue.
And I can't remember, your house, you had the converted garage area, is that your TV room like?
Yeah.
Is that where you were then? Okay, did you eat any breakfast?
Yeah, the whole cereal.
Okay, and then, then what? When did you realize you were gonna go fishing?
Oh, that was a morning decision. It's either
That was a morning
go play golf at the club or go fishing.
Okay.
Seemed too cold to go play golf at the club, so yeah, just decided to 9:30 or whatever was left.
Mhm.
Just told her what she was going to do for the day, and
This is an example of deviating from the baseline. Scott's baseline seems to be aloof and detached. This in and of itself is unusual given that he found out his wife was missing several hours ago. However, what's more important is that this question prompted a response from Scott that deviates from his baseline behavior. There's nothing funny about the question, response, or the situation, yet Scott chuckles.
seemed too cold to go play golf at the club, so yeah, just decided to
Chuckling while explaining something is not something Scott does normally. Scott also offers an explanation for his decision, which is not his usual behavior. Normally, he answers questions without giving any reasons for his behavior.
You didn't watch the whole thing, though?
No.
Is that where you were then? The converted garage area, is that your TV room like?
Yeah.
Okay, did you eat any breakfast?
Yeah, the whole cereal.
In his answer for when he decided to go fishing, he gives an explanation of why without the detective asking for any reasoning. This becomes even more interesting because 3 days prior, Scott pre-purchased a 2-day fishing license valid for December 23. This, combined with the behavioral deviation from his baseline, indicates that it is highly likely that Scott is being deceptive about fishing being a morning decision.
When did you realize you were gonna go fishing?
Oh, that was a morning decision. It's either
That was a morning
go play golf at the club or go fishing.
Okay.
Seemed too cold to go play golf at the club, so yeah, just decided to 9:30 or whatever was left.
Mhm.
Just told her what she was going to do for the day, and
Okay, so she told you what she was gonna do for the day?
Yeah.
And what was that?
she's going to finish cleaning up. Like I said, she's mopping the kitchen floor. Take the dog for a walk, and then she's going to the store to buy for Christmas morning breakfast tomorrow. And that was going to be a involved prep. So that was right, just prepping for breakfast. And she's going to make gingerbread cookies for tonight.
What was she mopping?
The tile in the entryway area.
The entry of your front door or the entry of your little interior converted?
Well, not the front door, but that back door that we came in.
Right, where the mop was outside of it?
No.
Where your dogs, one out to your
Well,
backyard?
okay, you have the converted garage,
Yeah.
right? Then you have the kitchen,
Yeah.
and then you have a room with 2 chairs in it.
Right.
Yeah, that room. Then the kitchen. I don't know how far she plans to go. She had me put the bucket by the front door for her.
So she asked you to put the mop bucket by the front door?
Yeah, 'cause she was pregnant, not gonna pick it up or anything, so I filled it up for her. Put it in I guess, the central office.
How did you move it back after or when you come home, or how did it get outside? Yeah. So you put it out there?
Dog and the cat ran in. Yeah, she wasn't about to lift anything heavy.
So when you left, do you remember what she was wearing?
Black pants, white long sleeve top.
The kind of buttons or?
No, just like a long sleeve t-shirt kind of thing. But, you know, didn't say anything on it or.
Jacket or shoes?
No.
No shoes? Do you notice if her jacket was there? Or did she wear it, like if she went walking at 10 o'clock or 9:30,
She just steals my stuff.
she uses your stuff?
Yeah, because, you know,
Mhm.
doesn't return stuff, so I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know. She could have had hers or mine or something. I don't know.
How about shoes? Does she have a certain kind of shoes that she walks in? Or,
Yeah, usually a pair of white tennis shoes.
do you know, did you remember if they were there or not?
The officers and I looked for them in their normal place, which is outside of our wet bar. They were not there, but we didn't look further, so they could be in the house. They weren't where they normally left. You saw mine where those were. That's where they normally keep.
Okay, so then about 9:30 you left, and you drove your four-door truck, and you went over to your shop?
Right.
And what'd you do over there?
I assembled my mortiser. You know, mortiser is it's a woodworking tool to make tables. Maybe you saw it on the trailer there. It's about yay big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got that, so I assembled it. Checked my email. Sent one email. Then took the boat up. And,
Okay, did you drive straight there?
I did.
Okay, so if you got to about 5 minutes to 1, get your boat in, how long do you think you stayed in the water?
Felt like an hour and a half or so. But I didn't watch or anything, but let's see if I was home at 30 or 2. I don't know, an hour and a half, I guess, probably accurate.
Did you have a map for that area, or?
No.
Would you just wing it? So you just, when you got in your boat and you took off, did you go very far, or?
Well, I mean, probably a couple miles went north, found like a little island kind of deal there. Island had a bunch of trash on it. I remember a big sign that said no landing. It looked like some broken piers around it. I just assumed it would be a decent, shallow area.
Okay, so you fished 90 minutes about, then what, you go back to the marina, get back in your boat.
Yeah.
You see anybody, you talk to anybody out there?
Talked to a couple guys fishing, asked me, to catch anything, and no, they didn't either. The guys working, fixing, maintenance guys got a good laugh at me trying to back down the trailer.
Okay.
So a couple guys laughed and a couple guys talked about fishing.
Then what, you drive, how did you get there? do you
Highway,
get-
you mean?
Yeah.
What's the highway to Oakland? It's 580?
Yeah.
And then you take 80 north, right, to go to, like, going to Sacramento or,
So you took 580 to 80, no, okay.
yeah, and it's like second exit in Berkeley.
Come home the
First
same
and
way?
second, yeah.
You have to stop for gas?
Stop for gas and, I guess it's little.
Okay, so then you get gas, you drive straight home.
To the warehouse, drop off the boat.
Okay. Okay, then you got home, then how'd you go, what door did you go in?
Went in what I would call our back door, which is that French door where my shoes were at.
See your dog out there?
Yeah, it was there.
And he still have his leash on?
So I took that off, obviously.
What'd you do with it?
Put it on the picnic table.
The French doors were unlocked?
Yes.
Then what'd you do?
put my clothes in the washer. Took out those rags, threw my clothes in there.
Were you calling for Laci, or,
Oh yeah, of course.
but she wasn't home?
Assumed she's at her mom's.
You put your jeans, your blue t-shirt, anything else in there?
I think that green pullover was in there too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Scott is not coming across as someone whose wife is missing. Scott doesn't ask any questions such as, "So what are you guys doing next? When can I get out of here to help look? Why are we doing this?" Nothing like that. While this alone doesn't indicate guilt, it raises suspicion, and the detective would have picked up on Scott's aloof demeanor.
Did you start the washer?
Yeah.
Did you put soap? Okay, then what?
Grabbed some pizza from the fridge.
Took the box out?
Yeah, put it on the counter like it was. Bought some milk. And jumped in the shower.
You had a glass of milk?
No, small one, yeah.
Okay, but you put it in a glass?
Yeah.
How much pizza did you have?
I think just one full piece and half a bite of another one.
Then you took a shower?
I took the pizza with me, start the shower.
Did you call her mom?
After I get out of the shower, put clothes on.
Okay, so then you called over at mom's?
That's right.
Had they heard from her?
No, just not all day.
No, was that unusual or not?
We were supposed to be there at dinner at 6 or 6:30.
What's Laci's mom's name?
Sharon Rocha. Ron Grantski.
Are they together?
Not,
You call him?
never been married, but common law marriage is what it's called. Lived together for 15 years or whatever.
Well, that's her stepdad.
By common law marriage, she called him Ron. That's what you're asking.
So you guys were supposed to be there, you were supposed to go to dinner there tonight at 6:30, or last night at 6:30? Okay, so you told Sharon, or did you talk to Ron?
Talked to Mom, Sharon.
And what,
I asked if Laci was there. Told me no.
who called us?
Ron did.
Did he tell you who's gonna call? Who else, did you call other people then?
I called Sharon, and then I called a couple of Laci's closer friends, I think Stacy and Renee. And I had the phone book out to call hospitals when I think Sharon called me back at that point and said that they would do that, call the police, and for me to check the neighbors and go to the park.
Was there anything out of unusual, out of normal in your house?
The only unusual things were the leash and the door being unlocked.
The front door, or the French doors?
Yeah, what I'm going to call the back door. Right.
The towels that were in the washing machine, you don't know what they were used on?
No, I assume that Margarita used them Monday, but I don't know what surfaces or anything like
How often does she come over?
that. Seems like once every 2 weeks. This is her third time for us.
You think she was there Monday?
Yeah, she was.
Okay, you guys haven't had any problems, marriage problems? Everything's good?
Mm-hmm.
You've been married 4 years?
Yeah.
The few times you walked in the park, you said that you have seen campers, bums, or
Yeah.
And has Laci ever complained to you about somebody bothering her?
No, I mean, like I said, no, and I don't think it ever come up to her and accosted her in any way. She has times that she's felt uncomfortable, and thankful she has the dog. We've called, the police a couple times about people down there just to move on. And it's not uncommon for Laci or myself to, wake one of these guys or ladies up and tell them to get lost.
The dog is she was glad to have the dog, but the dog is, I got two.
She's just very protective for.
Are they?
If I'm in the yard and a guy comes up to me, the dog is fine. But it's been in the past when someone approaches her in our yard, at least, that he's very protective of her.
He looks like he's been around the block, been around a while.
Yeah, he's an old boy.
Is he yours or
Yeah,
from
she
before
got
the marriage?
A month after we knew each other. She
Oh,
brought
really?
him home as a gift.
As a pup?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He looked older than 5 years old.
Oh, yeah, no, he's 8.
Is he?
8 or 9.
What's the dog's name?
Mackenzie.
I'm curious, what, Maggie was there on, Maggie and Marguerite, but she was there on Monday, and obviously she did a lot of work, but the
Yeah.
towels were filthy. Why was your wife mopping on Tuesday morning?
Yeah, I mean, she was pretty fastidious about it, though,
Was she?
with the dog and the cats and her, doing the Christmas deal. That was pretty
Was
common.
that gonna be at your house?
Or today, rather,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, she always had the vacuum in the mop out.
Okay, that is unusual. Would you be willing to take a polygraph?
Sure.
So what you're telling me, Scott, is you have no idea where this is.
On the surface, this is actually indicative of a truthful response. He denies the accusation firmly without providing any justification. He is short and to the point. His head shake is congruent with what he is saying. But the detective just bluntly accused him of withholding information about his missing wife, whom Scott supposedly found out about just several hours ago. Scott's response is appropriate to defend an accusation of knowing the whereabouts of a coworker's missing lunch. If Scott was acting authentically, he would have denied the allegation with sincere conviction.
So what you're telling me, Scott, is you have no idea where this is. The only, just to eliminate you as a suspect, you'd be willing to take, look at that. Shut it off. Would you be willing to take a polygraph?
Yeah. They're accurate, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing that can be used against you, but yeah, I believe they're accurate.
Yeah. No, I certainly will.
Wouldn't be now, it'd be, a day or two or a week, you can think about it.
No,
It's just like the next step in this thing.
sure.
Really, what's left is the flyers, the canvas tomorrow, the media coverage. What concerns me the most is the fact that your dog came home with a leash on. That bothers me. I mean,
No question.
yeah.
What concerns me most is doing anything I can to further progress.
I appreciate that, and I don't want you to hold it against me. I mean, sometimes I hate asking you.
You got to do it.
But I do. I really do have to do it, and I mean, I understand. I'm glad you have a strong support system.
Yeah.
And I'll give you my numbers and my cards, but there's a lot more we can do right now, other than canvas.
But we can do a lot.
Do you have any questions?
No, I mean, I've asked you a couple times what to do, so I have the answers to that. So we're going to go do it.
So, yeah, there's, all we can do now is make people aware of the problem, the situation, and hope that somebody saw something or knows something.
The only question I have, what about resources available? You saw my mother-in-law tonight. You saw some of my wife's friends, myself,
for
counseling, that kind of thing.
let's.
Can you give us the numbers or fax or smell?
No, I can give you those numbers.
Scott asks about counseling for those close to him and himself. However, Laci was officially reported missing approximately 8 hours before this interview. Why ask about counseling for someone that just went missing? There are two possible reasons. He is inquiring about counseling for Laci's passing, or he is inquiring about counseling just for the stress of Laci being missing.
I just don't know. I mean, you're probably not going to get any answers today.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah. It's Christmas. I mean,
yeah, of course.
So
Well, and there's no need to qualify.
today,
We find Laci in the next days.
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I'll give you those numbers.
God willing.
This confirms that his inquiry is not related to the stress of Laci being missing. It's bizarre for Scott to already be contemplating that there is a possibility of Laci not coming back. Again, this interview took place immediately after Laci was reported missing. For Scott to acknowledge Laci not coming back as a realistic option this early in the disappearance is unusual, and the detective would have picked up on this.
The only question I have, what about resources available? You saw my mother-in-law tonight. You saw some of my wife's friends, myself,
for
counseling, that kind of thing.
let's.
Can you give us the numbers or fax or smell?
No, I can give you those numbers. I just don't know. I mean, you're probably not going to get any answers today.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah. It's Christmas. I mean,
yeah, of course.
So
Well, and there's no need to qualify.
today,
We find Laci in the next days.
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I'll give you those numbers.
God willing.
That's my number, my cell phone number, and I'll get you the number to the victim services. Now, where do you want to go?
Oh,
Tonight.
physically, back to my home.
Okay, give me 1 second. Hopefully they're done over there.
In the days following this interview, the search for Laci continued as the story started getting local attention. However, the physical searches were not promising. During this process, people couldn't help but notice how aloof Scott was about the situation. There was a demeanor about him that was detached and standoffish. This rubbed most people the wrong way, and some people were very vocal about it. Soon, there was a tidal wave of accusations against Scott. Imagine you knew Scott personally while this media storm was brewing up against him. Take it a step further, and imagine you're a part of Laci's family during this.
We'd like to thank all of you for being here and helping us trying to find our daughter. And we'd just like to send a message out there that whoever has her, please, please, please let her go. We want her and our grandson home safely and immediately. So please bring her back to us.
You guys have questions for her?
She just, Laci loves life. She loves people. She loves entertaining. She's happy. She and Scott are just so much in love. They're just, I think everybody envies their relationship. They're just perfect together. They have a wonderful life. They're looking forward to having their baby. They've waited a long time. They've tried for a long time to have a baby, and she finally became pregnant. And I mean, this is just the center of her world, is to have her baby and be with her husband.
I'd imagine over the last few days you've thought about anyone she knew or anyone in her life that may have wanted wrong for her.
No.
Have you come up with
Nobody, everybody liked Laci. I mean, she's the kind of person that smile and talk to anybody.
Are you disappointed by the suspicion that's being cast on Scott?
Of course I am.
Absolutely. Everybody's feeling different.
We need to focus on Laci and getting Laci back.
Yes, we want
That's the important
we want her
thing.
home.
Sharon Rocha, Laci's mother, had a good relationship with Scott. She did not think there was even a chance that Scott was responsible. Little does she know during this press conference, that would soon change. While the search continues and these events are happening in Modesto, there's something else unfolding in Fresno. Meet Amber Fry, a 27-year-old single mother who's working diligently as a massage therapist to support her only child. She's gleaming because she recently met the man of her dreams, a successful, good-looking man who said he was ready to commit to her and her daughter. She's only been seeing him for a couple of months, but she was confident he was her future. On December 29, 2002, Amber Fry figured out that there was a missing woman in Modesto, and the woman's husband was Scott Peterson, the same man Amber was in love with. Amber called the Modesto Police Department, letting them know that Scott had been courting her for the past couple of months. Amber even tells the police that a few weeks ago, on December 9, Scott had told her, "I lost my wife, and this will be the first holiday season without her." This is priceless intel for the detectives. It means that 2 weeks before Laci went missing, Scott had said a statement that could indicate this was premeditated. This not only is incriminating for Scott, but it potentially could explain his motive. They just need Amber to obtain some sort of proof that he said that. The police tell her to stay on good terms with Scott, but give her a recording device to make sure all future correspondence is taped. Amber agrees to cooperate. Back in Modesto, a candlelight vigil is planned for Laci on December 31st, 2002. Hundreds of locals showed up in support of Laci's family, despite it being New Year's Eve.
And this community, when somebody's hurting, comes together like none I've ever seen before. Laci's disappearance hasn't impacted just her family and her friends, it's impacted all of us. So again, I want to thank you for being here tonight. I can't tell you what it means to the family to know they have this kind of support.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out here tonight. Laci would be so happy to see she had so many friends and supporters. And just keep looking for Laci. Please don't give up.
Here we are on New Year's Eve. The new year starts in just a few hours, and yet we have business that we need to get done. I wish that we had Laci here for a celebration. And because of my experience and because of the years of police work that I've been in personally, I'm very, very concerned about the outcome. Regardless of the outcome, our hopes and prayers are to bring Laci and her little baby boy home alive. And if that's not going to be the outcome, we're committed as a department and as a community to know what happened.
It's clear that the emotions are heavy during this event. A look at anyone present and the anguish is plastered on their face. Meanwhile, here's what Scott was up to.
Hello?
Amber.
Hi.
Hey, Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year.
I wanted to call you.
Thank you.
I'm near the Eiffel Tower. New Year's celebration is unreal. The crowd is huge.
The crowd's huge?
Amber, if you're there, I can't hear you right now, but I'll call you on your New Year's.
Okay.
Amber, miss you. See you soon.
Okay.
This phone call demonstrates how emotionally detached Scott is from the situation and how convincing of a manipulator he is. Scott has been described in various media as a sociopath. The clinical diagnosis is called antisocial personality disorder, and it's characterized by low or no empathy for others, persistent lying, no remorse, and disregarding rules. People with antisocial personality disorder can do things that neurotypical people find alarming, mostly because people with the disorder do not feel empathy the way most people feel. There has been plenty of research concluding that among incarcerated populations, the prevalence of the disorder is significantly higher than the general population. This could explain Scott's ability to carry out this phone call as well as his other behavior. Scott kept making regular calls to Amber pretending to be in Europe. To summarize 29 hours of phone records, Scott kept up this elaborate lie of traveling for business when in reality he was in a nearby town with a wife that's been declared missing and it's all over the news. On January 6, Amber tells Scott that her friend left her an urgent message. Rightfully so, Scott thinks her friend is referring to seeing him on TV, so he decides to confess to Amber instead. Remember that at this point, Amber is working with police, but the entire intention behind this is to potentially catch Scott saying something about Laci. From Amber's perspective, the emotions are genuine, as the character of someone she fell deeply in love with is being unveiled in real time.
I don't want to do this over the phone. I want to tell you this. I want to be that in person and tell you this.
Why would that? What are you talking about?
It's the worst thing. Sorry, Amber. I'll just tell you.
Okay.
You haven't been watching the news, obviously.
No.
I have not been traveling during the last couple of weeks. I've lied to you when I've been traveling.
Okay.
The girl I'm married to, her name is Laci.
Mm-hmm.
She disappeared just before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
For the past 2 weeks, I've been in Modesto with her family and mine, searching for her.
Okay.
Remember when Amber tells the police that a few weeks ago on December 9, Scott had told her, "I lost my wife and this will be the first holiday season without her." They want to confirm that he indeed said that because it indicates that Laci's disappearance may have been premeditated.
She just disappeared and no one knows
Okay, now,
where she's been.
Scott,
And I can't tell you more because I need you to be protected from the media.
Scott,
Yeah.
are you listening?
I am.
You came to me earlier in December and told me that you had lost your wife. What was that about?
She's alive.
What?
She's alive.
Where? She's alive? Where?
In Modesto. Now, I know, this is the hardest. I wanted to tell you first, you need to protect yourself from the media.
Okay.
Okay, if you've been watching the news at all, or you haven't, the media has been telling everyone that I had something to do with her disappearance. So the past 2 weeks I've been hunted by the media. And I don't want you to be involved in this to protect yourself. I know that I've destroyed, and I hope so much that this doesn't hurt you.
How could it not affect me?
It does. And
How can you possibly think that this would not affect me?
Amber, I know it does. But I know I've just been towing up the last 2 weeks wanting to tell you, and I'm so weak that I haven't, and I just hope that I had to call you and tell you that.
You never answered my question, Scott.
Sweetie, you don't, I can't say anymore.
I think I deserve.
You deserve so much better. There's no question you deserve so much better.
Yeah, and I deserve to understand an explanation of why you told me you had lost your wife and this was the first holidays you'd spend without her. That was December 9th. You told me this, and now all of a sudden your wife's missing? Are you kidding me? Did you hear me?
I did. I don't know what to say.
I think an explanation would be a start.
I know you absolutely deserve an explanation.
Yes, I do. I do.
And I want to give you one.
I'm listening.
I can't now. I mean, you don't understand. You don't understand the situation.
Then why don't you fill me in on the situation and make me understand?
I can't now. I'm so sorry for that.
Why?
It's to protect all of us.
To protect all of who?
Everyone involved.
So where is she?
That's what we are trying to find out. It's a nationwide search. It's a $500,000 reward for information leading to her safe return.
Okay, so again, you never answered my question. Why did you tell me it would be the first holidays without her?
I can't. Sweetie, I can't explain any more now. I'm so sorry. You should be so angry at me, and I hope you are.
Yeah, isn't that what you told me before? Oh, I wish, it'd be so much easier if you just hate me and not want to talk to me. And of course, for the person I am, of course I'm going to say, you told me you lost your wife. You sat there in front of me and cried and broke down. I sat there and held your hand, Scott, and comforted you. And you were lying to me. Again, you're lying to me about lying.
I lied to you about traveling, yeah.
That's among everything else. That's just an added.
Yeah.
So again, are you going... Is it that you're just not going to answer me?
I want to.
And what's stopping you? And what's stopping you from answering? Why would you tell me this on March 9th, that you have lost your wife, and I'm sorry I can't tell you until after I get back to Europe, and about this tragedy, and I asked you, are you ready for me? Oh, absolutely. This will be the first holidays without my wife. I'm going to spend them with my family in Maine. Is this not what you said?
It is.
It is. And how do you explain all of a sudden, you tell me it's a national search?
It is. Yes.
How is that just not such a coincidence?
If you think I had something to do with her disappearance, it does so wrong.
Really?
Right? Yes, it is.
So how is there such a coincidence to that story from what you're telling me right now about what...
Well, no, sweetie,
And you still have the audacity to call me sweetie right now. I am just such at a loss right now.
I want to explain everything to you.
Yes.
But I can't.
Why?
There are a lot of reasons. Primarily protection for everyone.
Protection of who?
Everyone.
Who's everyone?
Everyone is you, me, our family.
Everyone that would possibly look at you a little bit differently, because who the hell am I? You're telling me that we're, I asked, is there anybody else? Oh, no, I'm monogamous as far as I'm concerned.
I never cheated on you. I never did.
You're married. How do you figure you never cheated on me? Explain that one to me.
I want to explain it to you, Amber.
And? You will.
I can't.
You're going to, right? Is that?
I will. No, I will.
When?
I hope to hell that you listen to me when I can. I want to explain to you so badly, but I can't now. And I hope, and I can never ask you to trust me or to even listen to me again.
I possibly can.
I know it. I can never ask you to do that to me. And I just hope that sometime in the future you will let me tell you the whole story. And I cannot ask you to do that.
That makes a lot more sense to me now, Scott. Of course you couldn't tell me the story about your wife because it hadn't happened yet. And you were hoping to resolve in January that it would be resolved and you'd have a story to tell me.
You think I had something to do with her disappearance? Ever you believe that?
Well, let's see. How can I believe that? How can I believe that? How could I believe anything for...
I am not evil like that.
I would hope not.
I am... Oh, my God.
You've lied to me now?
It's unlikely that Scott would react to an accusation of this magnitude in this way if he was innocent. There are some key reasons why. A few weeks ago, before this moment, Amber's friend found out that Scott was married. When Amber confronted Scott about it on December 9, he instead said his wife was missing and kept it ambiguous. But he broke down. From Amber's perspective, she assumed that meant his wife passed away and she comforted him. When Amber said the following,
"You told me you lost your wife. You sat there in front of me and cried and broke down. I sat there and held your hand, Scott, and comforted you. And you were lying to me."
Scott agrees to this, which means what Amber said is factual. Now, Scott's behavior makes sense. We know for certain that when he was faced with a serious dilemma, his formula for getting away with it was spin it into something that sounds better, keep it ambiguous, be apologetic, and maintain hope that the real explanation is coming later. Of course, that explanation never comes. Then, he hopes for the confusion of the situation to win the person back. The reason this is dangerous is because to the unsuspecting victim, it is frightfully compelling. It may be easy to listen to this dialogue now with the ability to read the text and pause, rewind, and analyze, and think someone like Amber is gullible. However, reality is different. Scott weaved his way into this woman's life and developed a seemingly genuine intimacy to the point that Amber introduced her daughter to Scott, which is something she never did with other potential mates. The natural inclination to be polite in social situations is strong, and those who are polite don't object to the various checkpoints that a guy like Scott goes through while unfolding his strategy. The end result is uncanny deception. That being said, we see Scott using the same strategy that he used to get out of Amber finding out he is married. He follows the exact same blueprint.
It's better than it is. That sounds.
It's better than it is.
Well, the situation is terrible. Laci is missing.
Yes.
We have been searching for 2 weeks for her, and we have very little to go on.
Okay, so how can you have a girlfriend, when you're married?
Sweetie, you don't understand everything. You don't know everything.
Well, I have all I have is time and all. I can listen. I won't say a word. I'm listening.
Amber, you there?
Yes.
Okay. What did you say?
But I'm listening. Just tell the truth. And without...
I can't. I want to.
What's stopping you?
The situation's stopping me.
The situation
Yes.
is stopping you.
Yes.
That makes no sense.
Oh, I'm sorry?
That doesn't make sense to me, Scott.
Oh, I can never ask you to trust me. And I'm so sorry that this has happened, and this is happening to you. And that is just the truth.
How? I'm just so at a loss. How?
Amber, I had to tell you. I've been wanting to tell you. I hope in the future I can tell you everything if you'll let me.
But isn't that ironic how, Scott, when I first met you on our date, how you told me you were going to Maine with your family, and you were going to Paris and Europe and all these things. And then you came to me after Sean had found out that you were married, and you came and told me this elaborate lie about her missing and this tragedy, and that
No.
and that this will be the first holidays without her?
Sweetie, I never said. Amber.
Yes.
God, I don't want to fight with you. You know that I never said tragedy or missing.
Oh, yes, you said you've lost your wife.
No. Yes.
Obviously without me saying much. But we were...
I said that I lost my wife.
Yes, you did.
I did. And yes.
How did you lose her then, before she was lost? Explain that.
There are different kinds of loss, Amber.
Then explain your loss.
Even analyzing this recording, one can't help but start thinking what could be meant by different kinds of loss. We're left wanting an explanation. When are we going to get that explanation? Later. But later never comes. To demonstrate this, the phone call will be fast-forwarded in at least 10-minute intervals and then briefly played and so on. This will show how the conversation never actually progresses.
I cannot explain it all to you.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you're not wanting to explain to me right now, Scott.
No, I want to. I can't.
You want to, but you can't because why?
Too many people would be hurt.
What's your mindset there?
Sweetie, we can't talk about this.
Really?
Yeah. I can't give you any answers.
You can't give me any answers because it's not right in your best interest?
It's in no one's best interest.
It's in no one's best interest.
At this time.
At this time. Well, at this point, I'm just so frustrated because you're not talking about anything we haven't already discussed several times in the last hour. You're not saying anymore because you say you can't. Who's stopping you? You? Somebody holding a gun to your head? Somebody holding a gun to Laci's head? What?
It's not right to talk about.
What's not right to talk about?
The things,
What?
I'm running in circles, but the things we can't talk about.
We're running around in circles. Okay, well then why don't you lead me down a straight path and understanding? When?
This shows just how mentally exhausting it is to deal with someone that has these tendencies. It's not a productive conversation, and under normal circumstances, people become so mentally exhausted that they are forced into accepting whatever is being said. It's what makes this type of deception powerful. Amber and the police continued these phone calls to no avail. Scott, as expected, continued this behavior on the phone, and nothing substantial was revealed. On January 15, 2003, it was a major turning point. The police met with Laci's family and said that Scott may have been responsible. They showed them some key pieces of evidence, including pictures of Scott and Amber taken during a Christmas party the same day that Laci went to a party alone. They confirmed that there was a $250,000 life insurance policy for Laci. The subsequent media storm that followed was national. Wherever you looked, there were reports and pictures of Scott and his affair. Soon after, Amber was tracked down by the media, so the police decided the best way forward was for Amber to make a public statement.
I met Scott Peterson. I was told he was unmarried. Scott told me he was not married. We did have a romantic relationship. When I discovered he was involved in the Laci Peterson disappearance case, I immediately contacted the Modesto Police Department. For fear of jeopardizing the case, I will not comment further. I am very sorry for Laci's family and the pain that this has caused them, and I pray for her safe return as well.
This confirmed to the public that there was something more to Scott and that the suspicion was not without merit. More importantly, it changed the Rocha family's perspective about Scott. If he could lie about an affair and keep it secret, what else was he hiding? The theory that developed was that Scott did not want to have a child, and it was the reason behind this. This was evidenced by Amber saying that Scott told her he did not want to have any children. Laci's mother also recalled that in the past, Scott was adamant about not having children. But since Laci was persistent, Scott had finally agreed. There may have been lingering resentment there that prompted Scott to act. Knowing his image was being tarnished, Scott decides to do some damage control and agrees to interviews in the name of keeping the focus on finding Laci.
I think everybody sitting at home wants the answer to the same question. Did you murder your wife?
No, I did not. And I had absolutely nothing to do with her disappearance. And use the word murder, and yeah, I mean, that is a possibility. It's not one we're ready to accept, and it creeps in my mind late at night and early in the morning. And during the day, all we can think about is the right resolution is to find her well.
His answer is long-winded and he is seeking approval. This is a common tactic that happens instinctively when someone is being deceptive. They won't just say, "No, I didn't," because they're worried that this alone might not be enough to convince you. So they'll use adverbs that convey certainty, such as absolutely. Even this eyebrow raise is an example of seeking approval. It's an attempt to get the person to nod along and accept what's being said. Another thing to consider is his smile. Does this frame look like someone answering the question, "Did you murder your wife?" Now, one can say that people react differently in different situations, and that is true. However, this is not indicative of Scott's baseline behavior. If Scott smiled all the time, then this wouldn't be a concern. But as we will see, and as we have seen, Scott's baseline is stoic and reserved.
But as you know, increasingly, in the public, suspicion has turned on you.
Yes, definitely.
Did you ever hit her? Did you ever injure her?
No. My God, no. Violence towards women is unapproachable. It is the most disgusting act to me. And I know that suspicion has turned to me. And it's turned to me, one, because I'm her husband. And that's a natural thing. And I've heard all the statistics on all the news shows about that being, someone that a husband, ex-husband, a boyfriend, that is statistically one who would be responsible for her disappearance. And I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Did you ever hit her? Did you ever injure her?
No, never.
Scott is so preoccupied with regurgitating a preconceived narrative that he is not fully present. He's not having a genuine dialogue. He's giving out prepared answers to the point where he loses his place and forgets the question. It is interesting that there is a need on his end to approach the interview in this way, given the circumstances for even taking the interview. He seems as if he's reciting a memorized school presentation and fumbling on his lines rather than having an authentic discourse. The interview continues the same general pattern. At one point in the interview, though, Scott makes a blunder that stands out a little more than the others.
What kind of marriage was it?
God, I mean, the first word that comes to mind is, glorious. I mean, we took care of each other very well. She was amazing. He is amazing.
Scott really is not doing himself any favors here. Not only does he refer to Laci in the past tense, he immediately corrects himself and follows it up with, "She is amazing." Referring to your missing wife, who could very well still be alive at this point, in the past tense is something that needs no explanation. This is a classic mistake that is made by many criminals. Scott did more interviews and they all followed the same tone. The suspicion in him grew with every interview. Even Laci's family, who were initially publicly defending Scott, began suspecting him. Several months later, on April 13, 2003, at 4:45 p.m., Connor's body was found in the bay. The next day, April 14, 2003, Laci's remains were found in the same area. These were the locations of where the bodies were found. This is also precisely the area that Scott went fishing the day of the disappearance. In criminal cases, there is no such thing as a coincidence. That being said, this does not necessarily confirm Scott's guilt. Scott's whereabouts the day of the disappearance was publicized too early, and in Scott's defense, maybe someone else was responsible and dumped the bodies in the bay to solidify Scott's guilt and rid themselves of any future connection. This theory is plausible, and many who defend Scott's innocence harp on this point. On April 18, Scott was arrested. However, this was only the beginning of another chapter. What followed was more controversy. On November 12, 2004, the jury found Scott Peterson guilty of first-degree murder and second-degree murder for killing Connor. A lot of people who advocate for Scott Peterson's innocence make the claim that there was no direct forensic evidence to prove Scott's guilt. That statement is indeed correct, but that statement being correct doesn't necessarily prove Scott's innocence either. The reality is, it's not uncommon for murder cases to have only circumstantial evidence. When a murder is premeditated, there's likely going to be no incriminating surveillance footage, no eyewitness, no DNA evidence, and no direct links. The nuance here is that this doesn't mean there was no physical evidence. For example, if Scott didn't know Laci and law enforcement processed their house as a crime scene, they would have found a multitude of evidence that would link Scott to Laci. There would be fingerprints, hair, fibers from clothes, and all sorts of connections. There was even a spot of blood on the comforter that was linked to Scott, which could be consistent with Laci defending herself. However, that same spot of blood could easily be explained by an innocent cut on Scott's hand because he worked with machinery on a daily basis. Therefore, this evidence is meaningless because they were married and living together, so it can't be used to decisively prove anything. Thus, it's the prosecutor's job to convince the jury that the circumstantial evidence is enough. The burden of proof is on the prosecution team, and their one and only objective is to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Scott is responsible. Not all doubt, just beyond a reasonable doubt. And the jury's decision was guilty. In the penalty phase, Scott Peterson was sentenced to death by lethal injection. The $250,000 life insurance policy on Laci was also ruled to go to Laci's mother. Peterson was transported to California's death row facility. As with nearly all death row inmates, what followed was a lengthy appeal process. On August 24, 2020, in a 7-0 decision by the Supreme Court of California, Scott's death sentence was overturned, but his conviction was upheld. The decision was made because the judge during the trial dismissed jurors who opposed capital punishment without asking whether they could put their views aside. In August 2022, Scott's attorneys argued for a retrial due to juror misconduct. Scott's team stated that one of the jurors during the trial was biased and was already against Scott prior to the trial beginning. The judge has 90 days to issue a ruling of whether Scott will get a retrial. However, as it stands now, Scott will serve the rest of his life in prison. This case inspired the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, which is a United States law that recognizes an unborn child as a separate legal entity.
I also want to thank Sharon Rocha and her husband Ron Grantski for joining us today. They have laid to rest their daughter Laci, a beautiful young woman who was joyfully awaiting the arrival of a new son. They have also laid to rest that child, a boy named Connor, who was waiting to be born when his life too was taken. And his name is forever joined with that of his mom in this statue, which is also known as Laci and Connor's Law.
This law provides that any person who causes death or injury to a child in the womb shall be charged with a separate offense, in addition to any charges relating to the mother.
It was very difficult for me the day the prosecutors gave their closing arguments. I really had a difficult time that day because I knew that the jury was going out shortly to make a decision as to whether Scott was going to be guilty or not. I'd have a hard time separating my son-in-law from the murderer. I feel that Scott not only murdered Laci and Connor, the Scott that's in prison murdered my son-in-law also. I loved Scott. I loved him.